You're listening to The Picture Show, a Mach 5 Network podcast. And here are your hosts, Jason Zimmerman and Jacob Lee.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to The Picture Show movie review podcast, where each week we review one new movie that opened in theaters last weekend. We discuss the coming attractions for next weekend, and we review, break down, and spoil one streaming movie from Netflix. My name is Jason Zimmerman, and the man to my right is, of course, Jacob Lee. What is up? We're back together.
I'm so glad you're back. It was so weird doing this without you last week. And doesn't that sound better when Jason does the intro to the show than when I do the intro to this show? Doesn't it just sound right? It sounds at home.
It is. It's home. It's just natural.
Home. Although we did get to hang out last week, which was really
cool.
So,
yes.
So that was cool, but we're back. We're all together. Everything's good. We got a superhero movie this week and some weird art house movie, and we're ready to go. Ready to go. That's right. We're doing this thing. We're doing it. All right. So before we get started, if you have not yet done so, don't forget, be sure to subscribe to our show in iTunes or Stitcher Radio. Links to do that are on the website, mach5network.com. You can search for the show in iTunes and Stitcher Radio. And for our iTunes listeners, don't forget, you can always leave us a review. And if you like the show, a 5-star review. Every time we get one, an internet troll vanishes from the face of the earth. What's better than that? And Arnold comes back from the future. Gone.
Terminator style. And if you have something to say, or if you would like to suggest a movie for our now streaming segment, find us on social media at Mach5 Network. Email us mach5network@gmail.com. And if you'd like to connect with me directly, I'm out there. I have an about.me/thejasonz as my page where I have links to social media and all that good stuff. And we can connect and whatnot. So there you go.
And if you use Flipboard, which you should, subscribe to us on Flipboard. Get our Mach 5 Network magazine on Flipboard. Super cool thing. And also, our listener of the week on the Mach 5 show gets to be a contributor to that Flipboard. So right now we've got Andrew K. and Kaiju Jim doing a really great job with that. And next week we'll have another new listener of the week contributing to that as well.
Fantastic. I love it. Love that Flipboard. We're sharing a lot of really cool articles with our listeners and readers, and a lot of great stuff happening for us at Mach 5 Network and with Flipboard. Definitely cool stuff. All right, let's jump right into our in-theaters now movie this week. With the emergence of Electro, Peter Parker must confront a foe far more powerful than he. And as his old friend Harry Osborn returns, Peter comes to realize that all of his enemies have one thing in common: Oscorp. Directed by Mark Webb, written by Alex Kurtzman, Roberto Orsi, Jeff Pinkney, starring Andrew Garfield, Emma Stone, Jamie Foxx, and Dane DeHaan, this is The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Every day, I wake up knowing that the more people I try to save, the more enemies I will make. And it's just a matter of time before I face those with more power than I can overcome. I made a choice. This is my path.
Soon, everyone in the city will know how it feels to live in a world without power, without mercy, without Spider-Man.
All right. Let's get started with The Amazing Spider-Man 2, a movie that had its ups and downs for sure. I think one of the strongest ups for The Amazing Spider-Man 2 right off the bat, the acting and the chemistry amongst the actors. I think where you look at one of those things that stands out right off the bat, what sticks out as just was top-notch. I think they got the acting and the chemistry and the dialogue between the actors. They got it, some of that really spot on.
Yeah, I honestly believe that Andrew Garfield is the best Peter Parker and Spider-Man. I will defend that. I will defend that against anyone because he's perfect. He's perfect as Peter Parker. He's perfect as Spider-Man. He has all the quips right. He's got the attitude right. He's got the, like, I'm kind of socially awkward, but I'm not so Toby socially awkward thing going on. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
Tobey Maguire was hi Mary Jane. Hi.
Yeah.
I don't know how to talk to people. And Peter gets tripped up when he's talking to people, but otherwise he's a normal functioning human being. Or Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker.
Yeah.
When he walks up to people, like when he walks up to Gwen, he's kind of like, I'm going to say something stupid because I can't think when I'm around you, you know?
Yes.
As opposed to that, like, I don't know how to communicate with anybody. But, and for the time and for the writing, Toby was fine. Like, the Spider-Man 1, I rewatched it last night, has a special place in my heart. But Andrew Garfield just knocks it out of the park. Emma Stone knocks it out of the park. Sally Field knocks it out of the park. What's his name? Dane DeHaan, for the most part, knocks it out of the park, except for the confusing writing on some parts of his character. Jamie Foxx got the raw end of the deal in this movie.
He did a little bit. He really did. You know, his character, let's just go to his character right now. I mean, at points it was way over the top. The Max Dillon version of his character was a very caricaturized, you know, electrical engineer, nerd, completely socially awkward, has some mental problems. And they had him play that character, and they gave him a role that was very, I think it was kind of overdone. I didn't hate it probably as much as you did. I went to the movie with my wife. She absolutely raged about that character when we left. I didn't hate it that much. I kind of was okay with it. It was a little crazy, but yeah, I would say of all of the actors in this movie, he got the raw end of the deal.
I mean, to me, he was, and he actually said this in an interview with AMC Movie Talk. Like, he said it was great because it made me feel like I got to be an in living color character again. I got to disappear in a character. And that's exactly what Max Dillon was. He was the super nerdy guy, you know, like, and while yes, I found his situation relatable, right? I found the struggles that he was going through at work and in his personal life, not having any friends, you know, just didn't know how to interact with people, like, and all he wanted in life was a friend. I understood that. But the way in which it was done could have just been so much better instead of this completely hammy Jim Carrey. Everyone uses this, and I'm going to take it too because it's spot on. He was Jim Carrey's character as the Riddler in Batman Forever. That's what he was.
Yeah.
except for he was even more extremely powerful when he became Electro. And once he became Electro, I think he was given some better material to work with, like the scene in the trailer you'll see with him in Times Square. That scene, I thought he acted it out very, very well. But then right after that, there's another scene that you see from the trailer. A world without power. A world without mercy. A world without Spider-Man. And I'm like, what? Like, he was given some of the worst lines possible, and I felt so bad for him throughout the course of this movie because he is a really good actor.
He is. Yeah, his character definitely, he got screwed. Andrew Garfield, Emma Stone, solid, you know, and Sally Field. There were some moments where I was worried that Andrew Garfield was going to feel out of his depth as far as acting goes, because Emma Stone, there was a scene with Emma Stone and Andrew Garfield towards the beginning where they were kind of having an emotional moment. And I was like, man, she's bringing the acting chops. I mean, I like her. She's a likable actress. It's hard to not like Emma Stone, but I felt like she was a really, really good actress for one of the first times where I could see her really where she kind of disappeared, and I saw, you know, Gwen Stacy. I saw a character and not Emma Stone. So, and, you know, with Andrew Garfield and Sally Field, I mean, Sally Field's just a legend. So, yeah. But I thought Andrew would kind of get lost in some of those scenes, But I think for the most part, in some of those big moments, he basically held his own. And I thought, you know what? I liked him a lot in The Social Network, and he's a pretty good actor.
Yeah, I mean, this to me, I think, was Andrew Garfield's best acting performance. Now, I've only seen him in The Social Network, Amazing Spider-Man 1, and Amazing Spider-Man 2. This to me was Andrew Garfield's best outing. I mean, he really grew into the character. I think you're absolutely right about Emma Stone. Like, although I will say there are a few times where I've seen her in things that I really, really loved her. Excuse me, I really, really loved her in. Have you seen Crazy Stupid Love?
Yes, yeah. She was really good in that.
I loved her in that. Absolutely loved her in that. I mean, yes, there are some comedic roles like Superbad and other movies like that kind of made her popular, but I thought she was really good in that. But in this, yeah, I mean, I saw Gwen Stacy. I didn't see Emma Stone. And with Sally Field, you know what Sally Field looks like. You know, everyone knows what she looks like. I saw Aunt May.
Right.
And I can't say the same thing from the last movie. Like, I saw Sally Field and I saw Martin Sheen.
Yes.
I didn't see Aunt May and Uncle Ben. And in this movie, I saw Aunt May.
Yep. Yeah, no, I think the acting in this movie was stepped up. Andrew Garfield was definitely better in 2 than he was in the first Amazing Spider-Man.
So yeah, this was one of those strange superhero movies where I actually wanted to see more of the Peter Parker and Gwen Stacy and Aunt May scenes. Then I actually even wanted to see the Harry Osborn scenes. I wanted to see more of that and less of the Spider-Man scenes, which was bizarre because I can't think of a single superhero movie where that was what I wanted to see.
Right. They did a really good job in this movie where they made those dramatic scenes of character interaction and dialogue really, really strong. And for the most part, I think all of that worked really well. I didn't feel like there was too much of it or too little of it. It felt really good. The superhero scenes, for when we got those, I think for the most part were good. I think my main complaints with when Peter Parker actually turns into Spider-Man, one thing that you and I talked about, which we talked about this off the air, which is it is a Spider-Man thing or whatever, is constant one-liners and being all making little snarky quips and whatever he does. That's another example to me of things that play out much differently in text and reading it in a comic book as opposed to hearing it in a movie. To me, in a movie, you could say, yeah, that's just him, but it felt overdone. It felt like it was just too much for me to hear him constantly. Like, he's not like that when he's Peter Parker. His personality like doubles down when he becomes Spider-Man, you know? So it just felt awkward.
Yeah, see, for me, it didn't feel awkward at all because when he is Spider-Man, I don't know if that line was actually in the movie or if that was a thing that another, like one of the many things that they showed in trailers that wasn't in the movies. But he has that line in the trailer that says, you know what I love about being Spider-Man? Everything.
Right. Yeah.
And that to me, like, says that this character is going to go nutty when he's in the Spider-Man suit because he thinks he's awesome. He thinks he's the coolest dude on planet Earth when he's Spider-Man. And so, it really worked for me, especially those scenes where at the beginning of the movie, there's this truck, that's like running, the semi truck that's like running down the street, and he's just kind of like crap talking the driver of that truck. And it worked perfectly to me. I was laughing the whole way. Now, I will say there were some lines that felt kind of lame, but that's Spider-Man to me. He feels lame at points. Like, not every one of Spider-Man's jokes or one-liners actually even lands in the comics. Sometimes it's kind of lame because Peter Parker sometimes is kind of lame. So there's a line later, and he goes, "A god named Sparkles?" I was kind of like, okay, but that's Spider-Man. Spider-Man would say that crap, even though it kind of annoys you a little bit.
Yeah.
That's how he gets into your head.
Yeah, he does do that. And the other thing with the actual Spider-Man versus bad guy scenes, the actual like superhero scenes that I had kind of an issue with was that I felt that these fight sequences to me were too video game fighting game, Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter-esque, where you have one guy on one side, one guy on the other, crowd around it like you're in a boxing ring or something. Like it's, it felt too video game fight sequence for me, like they were squaring off in every fight sequence. So to me, that didn't feel natural. It just felt too video gamey for me.
I will agree with some of the fight sequences in the film. Some of them felt very much like that. Some of them didn't. The one thing I think that really kind of pulled immersion for me in a lot of the fight sequences was what you said right there with like the audience.
Yeah.
I mean, mother of God, there's a giant blue dude who's blowing up things with his crazy electricity power, and or a giant dude in a rhino suit shooting out bullets at everyone, and people are literally standing in their way. No one is running away. They just stand there.
Yeah. It's crazy.
And I'm like, normal human beings would not do that. You have TMZ and all that crap. If you're not there, you're still gonna see it. So run away, people.
Seriously.
But that was one of those things that I was just like, come on. Like, really?
Really?
But, that was, I guess that was one of those weird, we got to make it Spider-Man, so we got to make it, like all of New York is rallying around him, the
Right.
things that like worked in the first Spider-Man movie because they weren't overdone or overplayed, right? And the first Spider-Man movie came out like right after 9/11, so it was kind of nice to see people, banding together and sticking up for their hero. But in every movie since then, Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man 3, that scene with the cranes in Amazing Spider-Man 1 was ultimate cheese. They just so happened to have a crane on every single building,
crazy,
equidistant from each other. I mean, that was, and then now in this one, all these people standing and watching all this crap go down. It was very unbelievable.
Yeah, definitely. And then just a couple other things to kind of pick at that felt not good to me. Basically, we had too many little subplots and story things going on where, is this movie about Spider-Man versus the bad guys? Is it Spider-Man versus himself? Is it the relationship of Spider-Man and Gwen Stacy? Is it Spider-Man trying to find out the truth about his parents? Is it about his friend coming back and what's happening with him? I felt like there were so many little different subplots in this movie. It just got to be too much. And then they tried to pack in too many villains. They dragged the whole thing out. And I just think it just got bogged down with way too many elements. They needed to trim this script down a little bit and really focus it more. And that's where it started to lose me, in that the script got a little too bloated with too many things they tried to cram into it.
Yeah, I mean, the Rhino didn't even need to be in this movie.
Correct. Yeah,
Not at all. He served no purpose whatsoever in and of his unique character in this film. He served zero purpose. Harry Osborn, I kind of neglected to mention Dane DeHaan. I thought he was a really good Harry Osborn.
Yeah.
Really, really good Harry Osborn. I don't like his makeup when he's in the Goblin mode. I understand the vision, right? But for me, it didn't work. I know people hate that Norman Osborn from Spider-Man 1 Green Goblin Power Rangers suit thing.
Yeah.
People hate that. I love it. I don't know why. I like it. It works for me. Especially when in that film he's got like the mask sitting on the edge of his chair, like just sitting there. He's turning around looking at it and it's talking to him. Some of those scenes were just amazing from the first Spider-Man film. But I really thought that Dane DeHaan was an infinitely better Harry Osborn than James Franco.
Agreed.
From the original series. Infinitely better. But while in that film, or while in the original trilogy, they worked through Harry becoming mad at Spider-Man and Peter, and it took its time. It took 2 movies to the point where Harry finally realized that, Peter was Spider-Man. At the end of movie 1, he had a vendetta against Spider-Man. At the end of movie 2, he had a vendetta against Peter. It took its time getting there.
Yes.
And in this film, it just went from hey buddy, I haven't seen you in a while, to hey buddy, I'm sorry you've had this loss, like, and it really, like, that blossoming, like, or excuse me, not really blossoming, but that re-blossoming friendship. These two guys who hadn't seen each other for what
8 years,
8 years,
yeah.
10 years, yeah, and you could see that friendship budding again, and then all of a sudden, just like that, it went to crap again.
Right. I mean, how long did that whole process take? Like a week? They went from being like good friends again and close and like, hey man, yeah man, oh yeah, we're good friends again, to I hate you, Peter Parker. Yeah, way too fast.
And I think, and speaking of the parents thing, that whole parent storyline served zero purpose. Served no purpose. Yeah. I can't think of the reason that parent storyline even was entered into this movie, aside from, oh, we gotta at least resolve it because we set it up in the last movie. But the resolution of it was stupid. It was like, duh, when I got to the end of it, and it served no purpose. Well, I don't believe it served any purpose whatsoever.
I think the purpose was Peter Parker trying to find out what happened actually with his parents. I mean, that was something that was unresolved from the first one that continued to be unresolved in this one, and they felt the need to resolve it. So let's throw that into this one too. It was just another example of them trying to put too many story arcs into one movie,
I will say this. It did lead to that story arc led to one very, very effective scene with Aunt May. And I thought that scene was beautifully done. I mean, it's such a subtle scene in this film. It just takes place in Peter's bedroom.
Okay, I was going to say, is it the one where she's sitting on his bed? Yeah, yep. That was a great scene.
It's that 2.5 minute scene, or however long it was, 2 minutes. Not even that, maybe. That scene was perfect. I mean, that scene belonged in some Oscar-winning
right, exactly. Movie, it really did.
And there's another thing I want to mention about this. It's not really spoilers, because they don't actually outwardly explicitly state it, but for anyone who's seen this movie and anyone who's seen the first movie, I think Aunt May knows he's Spider-Man.
Oh, I think so too. I felt I was waiting for her to come out in this movie and say, hey, Spider-Man, or, something. It just seems like she knows.
And she keeps giving him these like little subtle hints, like, I'll do your laundry. Like, come on. Like she's doing that great thing where it's like, she's respecting him enough to let him tell her, even though she knows.
Yep, exactly.
And that's fantastic writing.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, definitely.
This movie is so
up and down.
It's so up and down. Like, I think Jeremy John said it best. This is a high contrast film. For every one or two scenes it's just perfect. It's perfect. There's a scene that you just absolutely hate.
Yeah,
and maybe not 1-to-1 or 2-to-1. It may be like 3 scenes that you love and 1 scene that you hate. But those scenes that you hate are just like, whoa, where did that come from?
Yeah, this
Mark Webb, did you even direct that scene?
Right.
Like there's a German doctor in this film that, you could rip him out of Looney Tunes.
Yeah, it was really bad. I hated that scene with him. I hated it. It was terrible. And then, so then the other things that I felt that they did here, they dragged the movie out too much, and I think that's a result of trying to pack too many things into it, where you felt like it should just end, it kept going. And then when you felt like it should end at that time, it kept going some more. Until, to me, I even was ready to look at my cell phone to see what time it was, because I felt like it was running long, because I felt like it should have ended twice already, and they just kept stretching it out for more when they didn't really need to, because it didn't add anything to it.
See, for me, I actually felt opposite on that respect. I felt like the pacing was a little bit strange. The storytelling was just all over the place because there were too many things going on. But I never once checked my watch. Not once. Because I thought, at the end of was it 2 hours and 15 minutes?
Yeah, something like that.
At the end of it, I was like, wow, that was it? And then I looked at my watch and I'm like, what the heck? Like, that much time has elapsed?
I was starting to feel it. By the end. I was getting a little shifting in my seat and just sort of, I'm ready.
But at that same point, though, I was like looking left and right. I'm like, there's too much stuff going on. Like, I think that this movie had it kept the same length, and they got rid of the Peter's parents thing or dramatically reduced it. Like the whole opening sequence with his parents, completely pointless.
Well,
and that takes up about 7-8 minutes of screen time.
The problem is, when it started, I actually liked it. I was like, they're kind of picking back up where the first one left off. Now we're seeing some things we didn't see before. We're kind of learning some more. So when it first happened, I liked it because I thought maybe I didn't know where the movie was going to go at that point, and I didn't know we were going to go in about 10 different directions by the end of it. Right. So
if it was handled better, I think it could have been better. Now, I was never interested in that storyline. I don't care. Yeah. Like, because that's not really in the core Spider-Man mythos. While there are storylines like that in the comics, there's no need for it here. I don't think. I think that they could still have the Aunt May, Uncle Ben, like, we're your parents, but we're not, that struggle, you know what I mean? Without him worrying about his parents, you know? But for this film, like, if you cut that, and I think if you cut Rhino, and you cut we're going to set up the Sinister Six crap, you know?
Yeah.
If you cut those three things and still had a 2-hour and 15-minute movie, given the scenes that were cut from the trailers that you've seen, I think it was a different movie. I think that they included some of those things because Sony wanted them to.
That's possible. That's very possible. I mean, I think it could have been a very different movie. I think a different cut of this movie could be top notch. You know, we're talking,
5.
Yeah, I was.
It could have been a 5.
Captain America, first Iron Man. You know, I think this could have been there. It had enough pieces that it showed that it had the quality to be there. It just kept dropping the ball every time you thought it was going to pick up steam. It just kept dropping the ball. And then the other thing that I didn't like with this movie and with the first Amazing Spider-Man, I feel that the musical score in both of these movies is just too heavy-handed. I don't think every scene needs a big orchestral or a whimsical. You know, I don't think you need to underscore every scene with music. You know, just let it be. So to me, that got distracting. Like, I was noticing the music and paying more attention to it because I'm like, God, this music just sticks out to me so much.
Now, see, I will agree. I will agree with like the musical score. Like, I think it was Hans Zimmer that did the music for this. Hans Zimmer did the music for Man of Steel, and the soundtrack to that film is to this day the only superhero soundtrack that I have literally listened to start to end. It's my favorite superhero film soundtrack. So Hans Zimmer's amazing.
He's good.
He's done some great work. But the ending of this movie, it felt Supermanish to me.
Yeah, it did.
I was fine with it being there, but it did not feel like Spider-Man. It felt like Superman.
Right.
And not Man of Steel Superman, like 1970 Superman. Right. And so it didn't really fit for me. And again, like rewatching the original Spider-Man last week, I thought Danny Elfman's score for that movie was great.
Yeah.
I thought it was wonderful. Now, it wouldn't have fit this universe, but on the music route, a lot of people hated like the Philip Phillips song, like put into the middle of this movie, and the electro like death metal like they lied to me, they lied to me. I thought that was a really cool use of music, and I like the Philip Phillips thing, just like I like the Coldplay inclusion from the first Amazing Spider-Man, because I like that music, and it made Peter Parker more relatable to me.
Yeah. I mean, because
I've listened to music, because they always do it like during like a montage of him like trying to figure out who he is, or, you know, like just doing normal everyday stuff, you know? And that's the kind of stuff I do in my normal day-to-day life. So it made Parker more relatable for me. But yeah, I'm with you on the musical score.
Yeah, I think those other two scenes that you just talked about with the death metal and the Philip Phillips song. I would have liked those probably even better if I wasn't already irritated by the other music.
I mean, the fact that they used a musical score to be someone's inner thought, was kind of cool.
It was, because he was kind of crazy anyway and had demons in his head essentially that were getting played out. Right. And I thought it was an interesting way to do it. It was just, to me, it was too much. It was too much on top of what was already bothering me.
It almost felt like there's two different scores too, because like at the beginning of the film, like that that like heavy drum track when he's like falling out of the sky. The very first shot of Spider-Man in the film, which is in the trailer too. Like I said, 75% of this movie is in the trailer. Right. But that shot of him falling out of the sky, that was cool. It was like I like those like subtle, pounding drum tracks, yes. And then they kind of slowly build to something. But yeah, like the last musical thing in this film when the Spider-Man logo pops up on screen, and I kind of rolled my eyes at that point. Yeah. I was like, okay, you could have just rolled credits at that point. You didn't have to have the logo pop up and yeah. I don't know. It was just weird.
All right. Any other final thoughts that you want to give to The Amazing Spider-Man 2 before we wrap up?
Well, I think I've said everything I want to say. Like everything I love. Some of the things in this movie are perfection. Some of the things in this film are, to me, downright horrible.
Yeah.
and it felt at times like a marketing vehicle for the next universe thing. And I'm like, I really wish they would have just let Mark Webb make a movie just to stand on its own, Like The Dark Knight has a cliffhanger ending, right?
Yeah.
That sets up things for the future. But if that was the last shot of Nolan's two, let's just say Nolan didn't do a trilogy and Nolan just did those two films. If that was the last shot of Nolan's Batman, I would be fine with it.
Yeah.
And in this, the last shot of this film, I'm like, yeah. I'm like, and then they start rolling like the Sinister Six like things in the credits and stuff.
Yes.
And I'm like, it's and I'm in marketing. It's just ploys for the next film, and it drove me nuts because I think underneath all that crap and all the jumbled stuff in this film was a excellent superhero movie.
Yeah, it was in there.
Spider-Man movie. It was underneath all this other stuff.
Yes, absolutely. All right, Amazing Spider-Man 2. It was a roller coaster of ups and downs. I'm going to give it my score now, right off the bat. Here we go. I went back and forth on this a little bit. I thought about it, and I am going to score it a 3.5. It had elements to be a 5. It had elements to be a 1. I thought it was going to be better than it was. It sucked me in, and at the end of the day, it was a 3.5, which, for that, I give it this.
Are you ever not going to fall for that?
A little special clip, I thought it was there, but I fell for it. I fell for a trick where it let me down at the end.
And for me, while my brain literally exploded 6 times trying to figure out a score for this film, because I went as high as 4.5 and I went as low as 2.5. From scene to scene, as I was recalling it in my brain, I was like, okay, what do I give? I'm like, what do I give this movie?
Right.
and earlier today, I was thinking I was going to give it a 3.5. But after some more thought, because the scenes that I loved were so strong and so perfect, I'm going to give it a cautious 4-, if that's okay. I'm going to give it a 4, but I don't know if it really deserves it, but I want to at least give it that.
Kind of
because I never felt bored during the movie,
Yeah.
And so, and it has some really great moments, really perfect moments in it. And so it is a 4.
We'll give it an awkward 4.
Well, hello, beautiful.
Yeah, awkward. Awkward is the best way to describe this film. But I mean, it's still good. It's just not great.
Right.
And that's the problem. It could have been great.
Right. You can see it.
The greatness is there.
Yep. Exactly. There is greatness.
So it's like a heartbreaking 4.
And that's a good way to put it. It's heartbreaking because it's potentially better than it was. They just kind of they missed the mark where they really could have put together a great superhero movie. But here's one last question: did we need another Spider-Man series? I often wonder that, even with the last Spider-Man. Was it too soon from the last series to jump into a whole new Spider-Man series when maybe they could have done a different comic book superhero?
Well, it's Sony, right? So Sony's got the rights to this, and the whole reason that they're making it is because if they don't make one every so often, they lose the rights back to Marvel. Hence why they're trying to create this whole universe with Sinister Six and Venom and all this stuff. And now I feel like everything is on a time schedule that they make. So nothing is going to be that great anymore because they're doing this for money, right? They're not doing it because they love the character.
Right.
And while I will, do we need a new one? Yes, I thought so. I mean, I honestly think so. I think it was a little bit soon and a little bit rushed because of that. But I don't think we should ever stop making Spider-Man films. I really don't. Now, I will say this. I think if Marvel, who had the proper reverence for some of these characters and know how to not make a cheesy villain, I think that they would have done a fantastic job with the same cast, and we wouldn't be having this debate. We'd be like, thank goodness they created another Spider-Man series, you know?
Yeah.
But for now, we have to deal with Sony and all of this crap. So, and I'm a Sony fanboy when it comes to their electronics and everything, but with regard to their handling of the Spider-Man universe, I just don't really like it.
All right, next week's review from May 9th, we are going to be watching the movie Neighbors with Seth Rogen and Zac Efron.
Zac Efron, and you forgot Rose Byrne.
And Rose Byrne, and yes, Rose Byrne is in it.
With her natural accent, which I like.
Directed by Nicholas Stoller.
Who directed, like, honestly, I think every Nick Stoller film over the last, 5-6 years, I've loved. I'm trying to think if he's done, I'm looking up right now. I'm trying to look.
Yeah, I brought it up.
I'm trying to look up, okay, so he's done
Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
He wrote the first Muppets movie, the Muppets reboot, which I loved.
Get Him to the Greek.
Get Him to the
Wrote
Greek,
and
which
directed.
I've watched a million times. Forgetting Sarah Marshall, which I've watched a million times. The 5-Year Engagement, which a lot of people didn't like it because it got too serious at points. I thought it was a just fantastic film. I've watched that 100 times. So
I like that.
And it's only been out for a few years. So I'm excited. Now he's got a few writing credits on here, like Fun with Dick and Jane. And Gulliver's Travels. But I think that this movie is going to be hilarious, and all the people who have seen it before it's released have all said it's really funny. So I'm super excited.
That's encouraging, because when I started seeing trailers for it at the theater, I thought, I'm never seeing this movie. It looks awful. This is going to be just a complete mess. But some of the early reviews coming in, just from scanning Rotten Tomatoes really quickly, are kind of positive. So who knows? I could be misjudging this completely. We'll find out in a week.
It seems a little more slapsticky than Nick Stoller's normal work.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's a frat house type movie.
Right. I don't love the slapsticky. So we'll see. We'll see how it actually plays out. I hope it's not like that as much as it looks like it might be. Let's recap. Here's a couple movies that we did not see and how they have been performing by the critics' reviews. We had The Other Woman we talked about with Cameron Diaz, Leslie Mann, and that one supermodel whose name escapes me at the moment.
Kate Upton.
Kate Upton. It's rocking a big 24% right now on Rotten Tomatoes. It boasts a talented pedigree, but all that skill is never fully brought to bear on a story that sells for cheap laughs instead of reaching for its empowering potential.
But it angers me because it toppled Captain America.
Ouch.
It was the first film to topple Captain America after like 3 or 4 weeks being on top.
That's a bad one to do it. That's a bad one
Yeah.
to do it. Also, Brick Mansions, which we had contemplated seeing, starring Paul Walker in one of his final movies. It's rocking a big 26%. This choppily edited and largely bereft of plot, Brick Mansions wastes a likable cast on a pointless remake of a far more entertaining District B13. And finally, The Quiet Ones. It says here, while it definitely sports a few palpable scares, The Quiet Ones finds Hammer Films trading too heavily on past glories, and that's sitting at a whopping 34%. So that's where a couple movies that we didn't see where they are currently at, and we'll see where maybe some of the other ones that we don't see. There's not a lot coming out next week to rival Neighbors, so I guess that's good for Neighbors that we'll be seeing Neighbors.
While I wish I missed being in the theater last week. I've gotten really accustomed to going to the theater every week since we started doing this, and I really like it. But I'm kind of glad I didn't waste my money on any of those movies. Even though The Machine wasn't fantastic, it was still enjoyable enough.
Well, that's good. I still need to watch The Machine. Missed The Machine, and I missed Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
You missed a good one there,
Missed a
buddy.
couple good ones while I was road tripping, but yeah, I got to watch both of those because I think they look definitely good enough to be worth seeing. So definitely want to check those out. All right, coming attractions May 16th. Couple wide releases. First up, Godzilla. In summer 2014, the world's most revered monster is reborn as Warner Brothers and Legendary Pictures unleash the epic action-adventure Godzilla from visionary new director Gareth Edwards. This comes a powerful story of human courage and reconciliation in the face of titanic forces of nature when the awe-inspiring Godzilla rises to restore balance as humanity stands defenseless.
I am very, very excited to see Godzilla. Though I have not, those people I think who have seen the film are kind of hinting that it's not as great as you want it to be, but it's still good. So
I'm gonna try not to be swayed. Because I'm as it's getting closer and closer, I'm getting more and more excited to see it.
Oh, me too. I'm like super excited to see it. But I really hope my super high expectations going into this film are not going to be, trampled upon.
Right. We can only hope not on that one. And finally, in wide release, $1 Million Arm. This is based on a true story. Disney's $1 Million Arm follows J.B. Bernstein, a once successful sports agent who now finds himself edged out by bigger, slicker competitors. And it doesn't say here, but he is played by John Hamm. Yeah. And
that's weird that they don't put him on.
No, they did not list John Hamm. Yeah. But he and his partner Ash, played by Asif Manvi, who you might know from The Daily Show with Jon Stewart, or he was also in the
Internship?
The Internship, yes. He was in that also. They have to close their business down for good if JB doesn't come up with something fast. And late one night while watching cricket on TV being played in India, JB comes up with an idea so radical it just might work. Why not go there to India and find the next baseball pitching sensation? Setting off from Mumbai with nothing but a gifted but cantankerous scout played by Alan Arkin in tow, JB stages a televised nationwide competition called $1 Million Arm, where 40,000 hopefuls compete before two 18-year-old finalists emerge as winners. JB brings them back to the United States to train with legendary pitching coach Tom House, played by Bill Paxton.
Game over, man. Okay. Sorry, I had to.
The goal is to get the boys signed to major league teams, but not only is the game itself difficult to master, but life in the U.S. with a committed bachelor makes things even more complicated for all of them. While Rinku and Dinesh learn the finer points of baseball and American culture, they in turn teach JB the true meaning of teamwork and commitment. Ultimately, what began as a purely commercial venture becomes something more and leads JB to find the one thing he was never looking for at all, a family.
I might go see 2 films that week.
Yeah.
I might do it. because when I saw a preview for this film, at first I saw the story and I'm like, it's a Disney sports movie, right? And most of them are good. But to me, like, none of them have really lived up to Remember the Titans.
Right.
Like, that kind of ruined a lot of other Disney sports films for me. But then I watched the trailer for this film, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go see this movie. I didn't realize it was opening the same week as Godzilla, unfortunately. I was kind of hoping we'd get to watch it and review it. But this might be one of those weeks I go see 2 movies, and I give you my quick thoughts on $1 Million Arm. Too.
Hey, all right. And there's a couple limited releases coming out, and I threw those in here because they have some stars in them and some interesting stories. So I just want to touch on those real quick for those of you who might get these limited releases or might be interested in seeing them if they get pushed out to a wide release. First up, a night in old Mexico. Forced to abandon his ranch and land, Red Bovee, played by Robert Duvall, rejecting the impulse to become complacent in his old age, hops in his Cadillac and hightails it to Mexico, while Gally, Jeremy Irvine, Red's grandson, which he has just met, sits shotgun on his grandfather's brash adventure to learn more about him. Grandfather and grandson start a journey through their respective dreams with a frenzied stop in a Mexican town where they meet Patty, played by Angie Sapita, who sees in them the hope for a better life. All of them are accidentally involved in the lives of some shady men, a road trip, a story about the virtue of surviving, and the right of each individual to choose their own ending. A night in old Mexico. And second here in limited release, Half of a Yellow Sun. This is the story of Olana, played by Thandie Newton, and Kainene, played by Anika Noni Rose. They are glamorous twins from a wealthy Nigerian family, and upon returning to a privileged city life in a newly independent 1960s Nigeria after their expensive English education, the two women make very different choices. Olana shocks her family by going to live with her lover, the revolutionary Professor Odenigbo, played by Chiwetel Ejiofor, and his devoted houseboy Ugwu, played by John Boyega, in the dusty university town of Nsukka. And then Kainene turns out to be a fiercely successful businesswoman when she takes over the family interests and surprises even herself when she falls in love with Richard, played by Joseph Mawle, an English writer preoccupied by their romantic entanglements and a betrayal between the sisters. The events of their life seem to loom larger than politics. However, they become caught up in the events of the Nigerian Civil War, in which the people fought an impassioned struggle to establish Biafra as an independent republic, ending in chilling violence, which shocked the entire world. So that one had some big stars. I saw Thandie Newton, Chiwetel Ejiofor, this story of 1960s Nigeria, political unrest, and you also...
Let's not forget John Boyega from Star Wars Episode 7.
Yes, there you go. So wanted to throw that in.
Sounds really good.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot going on. Really interesting story. So wanted to put that one in there also. Yeah, Star Wars Episode 7, by the way, FYI. Man, cannot wait.
Listen to Mach 5 Network because we're going to talk a lot about that. Go subscribe to the Mach 5 podcast.
Indeed we are. I've
been waiting like a full 2 weeks to talk about that. I'm like,
Yeah, seriously. All right, so that's what's going to be coming out. Now let's get to our now streaming pick. In our now streaming pick this week, Julian, played by Ryan Gosling. He's a respected figure in the criminal underworld of Bangkok. He runs a Thai boxing club and smuggling ring with his brother Billy. Billy is suddenly murdered, and their crime lord matriarch, Crystal, played by Kristen Scott Thomas, arrives from London to bring back the body. When Jenna forces Julian to settle the score with his brother's killers, Julian finds himself in the ultimate showdown. Written and directed by Nicholas Winding Refn, starring Ryan Gosling, Kristen Scott Thomas, and Vithaya Pansringam. This is Only God Forgives.
Your brother was murdered.
When?
Yesterday.
Did you get the guy that did it?
It's a little more complicated than that, Mother.
Meaning what exactly?
You can't go around killing cops anymore.
your brother would have found your killer, brought me his head on a platter.
All right. Only God Forgives, from the director of one movie that I really loved, which was Drive, which also had Ryan Gosling. Got me a lot of high hopes for this movie. It didn't quite hit the mark. We're going to break it down right now and talk about what we really liked and what we didn't like. And, you know, if you guys saw this movie, definitely chime in and let us know what you thought. So let's get to Only God Forgives, and let's start breaking this thing down.
So, yeah, I picked this movie for you, Jason. For you.
Why, thank you. That was very nice of you.
Because I was like, I've been looking at this movie for a while, and I'm like, yeah, it looks cool. And then I keep hearing things, and for whatever reason, Netflix thought I was going to give this movie 1.5 stars.
Wow.
And I was like, what? Because I go high on most of my ratings, and for whatever reason, Netflix thought I was going to hate this movie. Because
it was a 3.5 for me from Netflix.
Because I thought I was going to, you know, it was going to be Ryan Gosling beating up a bunch of dudes, right? And I was kind of, and had it been that type of movie, I probably would have given it a much higher rating. But alas, it was not. And the ultimate showdown, there was no ultimate showdown in this movie.
No.
When I hear the word ultimate, I think like, oh yeah, fight time. Like none of that. None of that.
You think like, say hello to my little friend, throw your face in some Coke and start spraying a machine gun.
Exactly. Or at least go like full on blood sport, you know, roundhouse jumping, flying kick to the face, you know. But no, there was no fight in this film. The ending fight in this film was literally like just a one-sided beatdown.
Right.
All right, so starting off, Julian is an American expatriate who runs a Muay Thai club in Bangkok, Thailand that is a front for a drug smuggling operation. His older brother Billy rapes and kills an underage prostitute and is caught by the Thai police. Lieutenant Chang allows the girl's father, Choi Yan Lee, to beat Billy, but Choi goes too far and ends up killing him. However, Chang does not care about Billy's death. Instead, Chang pulls a sword out of nowhere and cuts off the father's forearm and for allowing his daughter to be a prostitute, not for killing Billy. And so he tells him, right when he does this, he tells him, I want you to do this I'm doing this so that you will never forget the three daughters that you have still alive, right?
Right.
So that you'll never let them do the same thing as what your daughter did. So, right when this movie started off, I was kind of like, yeah, it's going to be that kind of movie, isn't it?
But you know, when it started off here, right off the bat, we get that style of vibrant colors and just beautiful cinematography already. I mean, there are some shots where people are like half in shadow and half with these really great patterns of light over half part of their face, and just really artistic shots that could just be these amazing still images. So I think this movie right off the bat sets the stage as it's going to be very artistic. It's going to be really pretty to look at. And there's going to be some violence in there because they're slicing people up right off the bat too.
Oh, there's some definite violence in here, but it's not the type of exciting violence, you know, in fight sequence type stuff. It's kind of that violence for, I don't want to say it's torture porn, but it's kind of like that, right? It's kind of a glorification of the violence, right? Trying to demonstrate the beauty of violence, you know, and that kind of artistic, the beauty and the frightening nature of violence and that kind of artistic type of style. But I agree 100%. The thing that struck me throughout this entire film from start to finish was the cinematography is beautiful. Like even the standard shots of like him, like Ryan Gosling standing in a train station, and it's just kind of gray and muted blues, but the shot is so beautiful. Like the whole film.
Yeah.
And even like the what action sequences there were, none of it was shaky cam. It was all still shots. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, mother of God, why don't Hollywood movies look like this? Like, why don't the big budget films look like this? Why is it all shaky cam, you know?
Right.
And
yeah.
so the cinematography was top notch in this film. So continuing on, Julian also has his sexual hang-ups, preferring to be tied up while he watches his favorite prostitute, Mai, touch herself, all filmed as if in a ballet.
Yeah, so right off the bat, we've got some
This is not for
weird
children.
stuff. No, we've got some weird stuff happening here. And the one thing that I forgot to mention from the first section, I don't know what was with the brother, right? The movie starts off in their boxing club, and then all of a sudden, then the next thing you know, it's nighttime, and the brother's just out like, I gotta get some, and then is killing a prostitute. I don't understand why the brother just went off the deep end so fast. That was awkward. And then Julian with the whole tie-up thing, I was like, all right, you got your thing, whatever, dude.
I think the Billy thing was fine, especially as the movie went on. You kind of understand that both of these guys have a messed up mother.
Yeah.
And it kind of built to that thing with Billy. It took its time with it. Everything in this film really kind of takes its time. But like seeing Billy go from like one place to the next, like looking for this underage prostitute or just a underage prostitute, I got the sense that he was messed up already from the beginning of the film, and that just further made me uncomfortable as he was kind of just going on and on. So I bought the whole, like, he's a psychopath and he does this kind of crap, you know?
Yeah.
But
He was.
But yeah, I was fine with that. But all right, continuing on. Julian and his crew go to Choi's kiosk to confront him about his part in Billy's murder, but spare his life after hearing the story. Julian's mother, Crystal, arrives in Bangkok to identify Billy's corpse. Crystal demands Julian find and kill the men who killed Billy, but he refuses, believing that Choi had some justification for seeking retribution for the killing of his daughter. Infuriating her. Julian has several visions of meeting Chang in a dark room with Chang cutting Julian's hands off. One of the things that's not mentioned in this description is this is the first time we clearly see, once Julian and Crystal have their first interaction together, that it's pretty apparent that Crystal, Julian's mother, had some type of sexual relationship with Julian.
Yeah, the way she's touching him, and yeah, it's
I mean, when she
creepy.
goes to hug him, she basically grabs his butt.
right.
And then the last scene with them together, like she's stroking his arm, like, you know,
Yeah.
It's uncomfortable, right? They never explicitly ever have to say it, but they demonstrate it with the scenes, right?
Right, and that's the thing that this movie does a lot. You don't know everything that's going on until later, because there is very little dialogue. It all gets played out in the scenes, and you find out piece by piece as it goes along.
So Julian brings Mai to meet Crystal, posing as his girlfriend. Crystal sees through the ruse and hurls insults at Mai and demeans Julian, pronouncing him sexually inferior to his dead brother, even going so far as to talk about the size of their ding-dongs. So
that was weird.
That was really weird. Julian humbly accepts all of Crystal's abuse, but afterwards turns on Mai, viciously humiliating her and then regretting it. I guess they did that to show that Julian's mentally unstable too, but that scene was... This whole movie's kind of hard to watch, but that scene especially was really hard to watch.
Yeah, because you want to think like Julian's the nice brother, but then he sort of gets all angry and crazy too,
which
and clearly has issues.
I guess that makes sense for later in the film too, like that they were just slowly alluding that Julian has sins that he needs to atone for too, and this was one of the scenes that demonstrated that.
Yep.
So one of the fighters at Julian's boxing club assassinates Choi at the behest of Gordon. A member of Julian's crew, at Crystal's request, or this thing is written really weird, so I'm having a really hard time reading it. Later, the police investigating Choi's murder arrive at Julian's club, but Chang concludes that Julian is not Choi's killer. Julian recognizes Chang from his visions and follows him from the boxing club, but Chang seems to disappear into thin air.
Ooh.
So, yeah, basically now Crystal's come in, and now she's like, I'm going to make death squads and whatever and send them out trying to find Billy's killer. And at this point, too, Crystal also reveals that all their money comes from, like, drugs. They're drug runners, basically.
Right. And we're seeing these visions that Julian has. It's one of the... It's something where you start to get into not knowing what's really happening and what is part of his just visions, because you have a scene and then all of a sudden it just cuts to something else. And then, oh wait, no, he really was just imagining that. So I felt like it starts to get a little confusing at times where you wonder if something's really happening or if it's just a Julian vision.
Right. Because it's very disorienting. Also, the synopsis here doesn't have these in here to describe, but at this point, at some point earlier than this, you see Chang randomly singing in a karaoke bar.
Right.
Which I'll get to what that means based upon what I've read later, but when you're watching the film, you're like, what the heck? Like, even for an art house film, it felt very, very strange. Okay, so with Chang disappearing into thin air, this is kind of where we first get one of our feelings, aside from him pulling the blade out of thin air and being virtually unbeatable,
right.
that Chang's not maybe something more than human, right? Or at least Julian's hallucinating something that's more than human, right?
Right. He does pull a sword out of his back where it's like he's
holster.
A Ninja Turtle with it strapped to his back, but just you never see it.
Yeah, there's no holster. It just comes out of thin air. But
right.
After learning that Chang was involved in Billy's death, Crystal meets with an associate, Byron, to arrange Chang's assassination. 3 gunmen on a motorbike are sent to kill Chang at a restaurant with machine guns, and 2 of Chang's men are killed in the shootout. Chang kills 2 of the gunmen and follows the third on foot, beating him with a frying pan. That whole sequence was awesome.
It was, but it was weird because the frying pan just came out of nowhere too.
No, he looked at the cart and the little food cart thing that was like frying peanuts or whatever.
I saw like the close-up shot of it frying, but I didn't know where it was actually at. Okay, I was a little disoriented.
Yeah, he was hiding around that corner, and then he saw the thing frying there, and it didn't show him actually grab it, but it showed the frying pan, so that's where he got it from. So the frying pan came out of nowhere. But at this point, too, I'm wondering, okay, if he's pulling the sword out of nowhere, then why does he need the frying pan?
That's true. Why can't he just pull the sword out at will?
Yeah, I don't know. He leads him to his boss, Li Po, who is feeding his young crippled son. Chang then kills the third gunman and spares. Oh, maybe he did it to lead him there, right? So he didn't want to kill him. He just wanted to beat him. Got it.
Yeah.
Because he pulls out the sword and kills him later. So Chang then kills the third gunman, but spares Li Po after seeing him show affection for his son, who I think had some type of disorder. I think, potentially. Li Po points Chang to Byron, who ordered the hit. Chang finds Byron in a club and tortures him to get answers. Byron reveals the reasoning behind the hit but refuses to give a name. Chang continues to torture Byron, cutting out his eyes and inserting a spike into his ear. That was... I don't like anything brutal. With the eyes.
Yeah.
Now, granted, they didn't actually show like the blade slicing the eyeball, which was good because the eye was closed. Thank goodness. But yeah, he's like jamming these pokey rod things into his hands and his legs, and that was a little bit rough.
Yes.
Julian confronts Chang just randomly and challenges him to a fight, and they fight on the bare concrete floor of Julian's boxing venue. Chang, an experienced boxer, easily and thoroughly beats Julian, who lands not a single hit in the entire match. That's the ultimate showdown, right?
Yeah, that was basically it. I mean, they sort of just kind of see each other on the street.
He's like,
and Julian's just like, "Hey, want to fight?"
He literally, that's the line. It's like,
right.
He's like, "You want to fight?" It's like, what?
Right.
It's a bar brawl thing, bro. Like, come on now. Afterwards, Crystal tells Julian that Chang has figured out she ordered the hit on him. Fearfully, she pleads with Julian to kill Chang to protect her, the same way she asked Julian to kill his own father for her. So yeah, there's the sin and the stuff with Julian being messed up, right? She promises that after Julian kills Chang, they will go back home and she will be a true mother to him and take care of him. I wonder what taking care of him means.
Mm-hmm.
And Julian agrees. So here's the epilogue ultimate showdown setup.
Yeah.
It was weird.
Something.
Julian shoots the guard outside Chang's home, and his associate Charlie Ling enters Chang's house, intent on ambushing him. When he returns, Charlie informs Julian that he was instructed to execute Chang's entire family. Charlie murders the nanny of Chang's daughter as she enters the home, but in an act of redemption, Julian shoots Charlie before he can kill Chang's young daughter. So, again, Julian is a conflicted human being. He has sins of his past. He has some darkness within him, but he's still, I want to say, at his core is a good person because he feels shame and he feels sorry for these bad things that he's done, right? He can't help himself sometimes, but he always feels bad about them. He wants to repent.
Yeah, and at his core, he doesn't want to hurt people.
Right.
He didn't want to kill Choi, the father of the prostitute.
Right.
You know, he doesn't want to kill a little girl, but at the same time, he's now trying to kill Chang to, save his mother, essentially.
Right. So Chang and a police officer visit Crystal, and at this point, she's like, yeah, it's all Julian. It's not even me. Whatever. Screw my own son, who I just said that I was going to be a good mother for. She blames everything on Julian, and then Chang, in this kind of intense moment, because you don't know quite how Chang's going to deal justice in this sense, right?
Right.
And so he ends up stabbing her in the throat.
With the magic sword.
With the magic short-bladed sword. So Julian returns to the hotel and finds his mother's corpse. In silence, he approaches her body and cuts open her abdomen. Julian slowly places his hand inside of the wound.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ew.
Like, what? Like, I know it's an art house movie, but as I was watching that, I was like, huh? At first, I thought he cut open something, not her stomach. The first time I saw the film, I was like, did he just cut open that? Is he doing that to a dead what? Apparently that was Ryan Gosling's decision, according to the director, to do that instead of like touching her face or something like that. That I don't know what the hell that was.
Yeah, it was kind of like,
but
these people are so twisted and have such a messed up relationship that he's just gonna cut open her body and put his hand inside of her.
There is a running potential explanation, which I will try to summarize at the end of this thing, because this whole film made no sense until I went back and watched some analyzed versions of it and whatever and read some stuff. But yeah, so Chris Stuckman's analyzed video of this film made a lot of things make a lot more sense to me. Although I did kind of get the major overarching thing just from watching the film. But after leaving and having several surreal visions, Julian is shown randomly standing in a field with Chang, who appears to cut off both of Julian's hands with his sword. The final scene returns to Chang singing at a karaoke bar with an audience of attentive police officers watching him in silence.
The end.
Woo! And that rolls over the credits.
And the thing that I kept wondering at the end though was, did Julian really get his hands cut off? Or because here's the thing, Julian goes into another one of his visions right there, and then it does that quick cut to they're in a field together, right. Julian getting his hands cut off by Chang's magic sword. So then I thought, did that happen? Did that not really happen? It was another one of those moments where it just kind of left me a bit confused because you don't know if you're in a vision or not, because it just all is kind of running together.
I just had a different revelation.
Oh.
Okay. So, all right. So the film itself, here are supposed to be the big overarching themes. Now, the director kind of confirmed, because he told the actor playing Chang that he was God. He told the actor that.
Right.
And so the whole thing is Chang is God, and he's out dispensing justice. So the guy, the prostitute's father, he didn't kill him because he repented, but he punished him, right, by cutting off his hands, or his one arm.
Right.
Then he kills all the wicked, But for those who repent, they still have to be punished, like Julian, and Julian, cuts off his hand. So in spares, like the one guy who was just trying to protect his son, he didn't kill them, right? So the thing is Chang is God. Also, the karaoke thing, from the best descriptions that I've seen, the karaoke thing is supposed to be kind of a religious, like it's described as like a religious experience for the people of Thailand. And so that is why they included that. So it was kind of like the end of Slumdog Millionaire, where they were like, we're paying homage to the culture that we're in, with the dance sequence at the end of Slumdog Millionaire. So that was kind of like why that was included. Also, it further symbolizes that Chang is kind of mystical and godlike, right?
He's up on stage with the spotlight and everyone's around him.
And everyone's watching him. Even one of the dream sequences, even Crystal and Julian are watching him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, and then like that's the best explanation I've had. Now that still leaves some questions. Why does he have a daughter? Why does he have a nanny? You know, like
right.
Like if he's God, why does he have these things? Now I don't know if it's God I don't think it's God in the Judeo-Christian sense, right?
Not
maybe
literal God.
It's God in maybe it's God in like the Thailand, whatever religious, thing that they have, right? I don't know much about it beyond like Buddhist and Shintoism and all that. It doesn't really fit those things, but maybe it's their religion. I don't know, but that's the director's explanation. And also like the whole Julian wanting to repent for his sins throughout the whole thing, that whole hand symbolism. Like he never touches Mai, right? Because he can't.
Oh.
And every time he looks at his hands are like the things that killed his father, right? That's the sin. That's the thing that did the sin, right? And they say that like him sticking his hands inside a crystal is like him giving the sin back to her.
Oh,
and there's also theories that Crystal's the devil, or at least like the devil on his shoulder, right? Telling him to do all the bad things that he does and manipulating him to do all the bad things, kind of like the snake in the Garden of Eden type of thing.
Yeah.
But as we went through this, I had another kind of theory about the film.
All right.
Chang is Julian.
What?
Yeah.
Chang is Julian.
Yeah. So here's what I was thinking. At the end of the film, Julian takes a sword, like the same type of sword, out of that closet where Chang is.
Uh-huh.
Or Chang's daughter or whatever is. He takes the sword from that closet, and then nothing's ever made of that. I thought he took that sword and then was going to go fight Chang, right?
Right.
But he doesn't. So Chang either has a second sword or Julian has possession of Chang's sword, which comes out of nowhere. And that's never resolved at any point in the film. And why would Julian be in that bar with Chang unless Chang was some type of figment of his imagination? And wouldn't it make sense if it doesn't make sense with Crystal talking to Chang as if blaming Julian if it was really Julian. But the whole movie's so disorienting. So, and like the Chang thing was being God kind of doesn't make sense at points too. But maybe that's an alternative explanation is maybe Chang doesn't cut off his hands. Maybe he cuts off his own hands at the end of the film as a form of repentance, right?
Yeah.
Like Chang is operating through Julian, and all this stuff is kind of like how he's seeing it in his head.
Yeah. I mean, the whole thing, after you kind of get through it and it all unravels and you actually can start to make sense of it all and put the pieces together, you can see that it's basically this allegory of good versus evil and repenting for sins and all of these other themes that come out of it, that if you're just kind of watching it and just trying to take it at face value as it goes along, you don't get it. But until the end, as they reveal things scene by scene, because again, there is not a lot of dialogue, there's not a lot of narrative to push you through the story. It's all you just watch, and things will steadily unfold. There'll be a little bit of dialogue to reveal things as it happens. It's very quiet. There's not a lot of talking. There's a lot of staring into people's faces. So it just sort of unfolds, and And at the end of all this, I kind of want to go back and watch it again now to see what maybe, you didn't see the first time. And now after, we've obviously talked about it and read about it and learned more, to kind of get a different sort of feel for the movie. I think I have a different appreciation of it talking about it after the fact than I did watching it the first run through. I think this is a movie that needs a couple times to watch it and sort of build an appreciation for that you might miss out the first time through it.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I didn't have that drinking buddies like reaction when the movie rolled credits. Although
well, that's good.
The karaoke thing was weird, right? Like in that rolling over the end credits. But I sat down and I watched this movie from end to end. And I mean, it's only like 90 minutes, but it was beautiful to look at. It was disturbing and different. And while, I mean, it's not an indie movie that I particularly loved, it was still okay. I thought some parts of it were kind of clumsy, but the discussion of it makes it more interesting, which I think is its goal too. And I think its goal was to make you uncomfortable while you were watching it too. With some of the dialogue, there's the limited amount of dialogue in this movie is pretty messed up.
Yeah, it is. There's some very, very twisted people here.
But I thought generally, like performance wise, it was good. It had a lot of good performances. I mean, even without a lot of dialogue, I think the looks, and I don't know if that's a cinematography thing, right? That's enhancing those performances, because even just the slightest nuance in someone's face, like, was interesting to me watching it.
Right. And that could be through the direction, maybe, the director kind of pointed them in that way of portraying the character and doing those things. We don't know, but yeah, there's a lot of little things here to pick out. So I scored it lower than I might after a second or third watching of it. But to get to my score right now, I gave this movie, after watching it, giving it some thought, I gave it a 2.5. Let's see what I've got for a 2.5 here.
Bring me the big knife. I'm gonna cut my throat.
There's a little something.
I am also going to give this movie a 2.5. I'm going higher than I typically do on art housey type movies, right?
Right. Wow, we gave it the same score.
Inconceivable.
We gave it the same score. So, yeah.
And it's lower than I would typically go on something like this, but
right.
I think as I think about it more, I could see my score going up. I think it's better than I'm giving it credit for right off the bat. It's very layered, and it needs more watching and more attention. So
I think for me, if I were to watch it again, I don't know if I'm going to, because it's not a particularly enjoyable watch,
True.
I don't know if I'm going to watch it again, but I think if I watched it again, knowing what I know now, and then kind of absorbing it all and coming up with different theories, right? Like if I had to write a paper on this movie, I'd probably love it. Because I'd be like, oh, what does this mean? Like, what does this mean? It would be a really fascinating film study film. But the fact that I'm not doing that with this movie, I think my score would definitely go up with a rewatch, but I don't know if it would go higher than a 3.
Yeah, I don't know
it's
either.
It's not gonna be like watch 1's a 2.5 and watch like 4 is a masterpiece,
No, I read some reviews after the fact, after I watched it, where there are some people out there that say it's a masterpiece and here's why. I don't know that I would get there. I think I could push as high as maybe a 3.5 upon further review, maybe, but I probably couldn't go more than that. Drive, also directed by Nicholas Winding Refn, is so much better. If we had reviewed Drive, that'd be a different story. If you haven't seen Drive out there, people, I recommend watch Drive before Only God Forgives, or maybe watch it after, because after you see it, you'll be let down by this one, because they're very different. But Drive is an excellent movie.
I really want to see Drive. I was going to pick Drive.
Oh, yeah.
Drive was on Netflix for forever, and I've always wanted to see it, and I went and looked, and it wasn't there. So I was like, well, this one's up there. Same director, same main actor. We'll do this one. And if you had to score Drive, how, like, not maybe your official score, but where would you range it? You had to score it today.
Oh, I would put Drive somewhere. I might put it in for me, the 4 to 4.5.
Okay, so it's not like a 5 for you.
It's not a 5,
okay.
But it could go 4.5, which for me is pretty high.
Okay, so for me, I'm going to say then it's probably like a 3.5, 4. Or
could be, yeah.
So maybe a 4 for me. So okay, I want to see it. I might end up watching it here, finding a copy of it or whatever. But I will say this movie intrigued me enough to make me really want to watch Drive, because now I know that I was okay with this movie. Maybe I'll really like Drive too.
Hey, there you go. I think you're gonna like it. I think if you watch it, I think you'll like it. I mean, I watched it with my wife and she said, "That was terrible. What was that crap?" And I was like, "What do you mean? It was so good."
It's to me, it seems like Nicholas, whatever his last couple names are, it seems like his films are like the Dostoevsky of cinema, right? It's like hard to digest and consume, but it's very layered and very deep.
Right.
And like high school me loved Dostoevsky and that crap. And if I saw this in high school, I probably would have been like, it's so great. Like, because I was in that really analytical mind frame, right?
Yeah.
That I'm just not in later in my life.
Right.
So.
Well, and the thing that he really likes to do in these movies is very, very quiet scenes with brief bits of dialogue, and then just two people in these sort of awkward, silent moments, which were definitely more prevalent in Only God Forgives. They lasted a lot longer, but you have sort of that same thing where in Drive, you have Ryan Gosling just says a couple words and it's just very quiet, and then you just kind of have two people there. So it definitely has the similar style, but the movie has a little bit more plot to it, a little bit more action and things like that I think for me really helped boost it to being artsy yet accessible enough to make it really great. So
his style almost reminds me of like I don't want to say it's the anti-Tarantino, but it's like Bizarro Tarantino.
Yeah.
Like you have Bizarro Superman, now you have Bizarro Tarantino. Because like Tarantino likes to film like these really long, weird, anxious, awkward dialogue segments with tons of just dialogue where you're like,
right,
okay, half the time when you're watching it, but then later on you think it's brilliant. And in this, instead of having those overstuffed dialogue segments, you have these really long, awkward, silent segments.
Yep,
but in
exactly.
that same artsy type of style.
Right. Exactly. They are the Bizarro of each other, I guess.
So there you go. At least I somewhat enjoyed this one.
Yeah. Hey, there you go. And that's all you can ask for is somewhat enjoy it. All right. Next week, now streaming. I didn't even say this out loud before. I just threw it in there. I slipped it in.
I looked at this one too.
Did you?
Yeah.
A Fantastic Fear of Everything, starring Simon Pegg. How do you not love Simon Pegg? While researching a book on Victorian-era murderers, author Jack Knife comes to fear they're really stalking him and grows agoraphobic. Come on, who doesn't like Simon Pegg? I think this is going to be funny. I had this on my list of movies to see earlier in the year. I had written this one down. I was glad to see it's on Netflix now.
It's supposed to be a comedy though, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
I was gonna say, if this goes really dark, it could be really weird.
That would be
like
really
it could
weird,
be
actually.
like Secret Window with Johnny Depp weird. Although I really like
Yeah.
that film, but Simon Pegg doing that would just be a terrible misuse of Simon Pegg, I think.
Right.
But Simon Pegg, one of my favorite comedic actors, him and Nick Frost together, like they're like the perfect duo.
They are.
Hot Fuzz. I don't think I have ever laughed at a movie for literally like I want to say I laughed during Hot Fuzz for a good 35 minutes straight. Like, I could not stop laughing the first time I saw that film. From the point where they start to reinvade the town. Like,
Yeah.
when they're kicking grandma and grandpa's butt later in the film.
Right.
I laughed from that point on until the end of the film. Like, I was just hysterically laughing the whole time. So yeah, Simon Pegg, I'm good with that. I'm glad to hear that it's a comedy.
He's gonna make agoraphobia hilarious.
Hilarious.
All right, so next week you can look for A Fantastic Fear of Everything streaming and in theaters. We will be watching Neighbors. We're gonna have 2 comedies next week. It's gonna be a double comedy week.
I'm kind
See how
of
that works
glad
out.
for that, because after Only God Forgives, I need a little something light.
Yeah, you kind of got to lighten the mood after that one.
Really do, or you will slip into some dark places.
Yes, you will.
I'm Batman.
All right.
Darkness, death, darkness. My parents died. I'm Batman. Isn't that how the song went in the Lego movie?
Yes, it was like that.
Death and darkness, Batman.
Right. Yes, pretty much. That sums them up. We don't want to slip into those places, so we're going double comedy next week. So stay tuned for that. We're going to have more great stuff for you on the Picture Show next week. So on that note, guys, we will talk to you later. Take care.
Peace out.
This has been a Mach 5 Network production. Be sure to subscribe to our shows on iTunes and Stitcher Radio. You can also like us on Facebook at facebook.com/Mach 5 Network. Follow us on Twitter at Mach 5 Network and email us at mach5network@gmail.com. Until next week, I'm your announcer, Crown Jules, logging off.